Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Gretchen Brown. Thank you for subscribing or clicking on my channel. I am blind, so I apologize if the light slash camera isn't aimed appropriately. I don't see cameras, so I don't know what you're seeing. I apologize if it's like dark. So I'm using a tripod, so sorry, I was making sure my camera was lined up. I'm using a tripod, so hopefully it works. I'm going to be talking about something that I went on a couple weeks ago, and it really was a lot, and I might cry during this video, so just putting that out there. So a couple weeks ago I went to something called a Sojourn. It's basically like a walk to Emmaus, but for people that are 18 to 24 that are not married. And it used to be called a Journey, now it's called a Sojourn, which is like the same thing, but whatever. And yeah, so I'm gonna get really deep in this video, and so if you're gonna go on one, I'm gonna tell you I might spoil some things. I don't know, because every place does it differently. Mine is small area in Indiana, so you know, if you're in like a different state, you might have a different region. I don't know how y'all do it, but this is my experience as a blind person going to a Sojourn, and there was a lot of tears. Like, I cried a lot, and I don't cry, so it was interesting. Okay, so it started out in October-ish, probably like September, October-ish. I was at my church, and this lady came up to me, and she goes, "Hey, do you want to go to the Sojourn?" And I was like, "I don't know what that is." And she goes, "Oh, it's like Walk to Emmaus." And everybody had told me about the walk. Like, they said it was a life-changing thing, and I was like, oh boy. Like, they were like, yeah, you can't bring your phone, and like, you're away from people. And like, they made it sound really creepy. Like, I was like terrified because I don't like people. Like, I don't like being around a lot of people. And so like, the idea of being around people constantly that I didn't know, in a setting where I didn't have any of my security items, like, you know, my phone or you know, a knife or anything like that, like, I was just very afraid. And as someone with PTSD, that was also a concern, because, you know, hypervigilance in stressful situations is still common for me. I'm working on it, but it's still an issue. So, you know, new people, new environment, I don't know what I'm doing, don't know where I'm going, don't know what's happening, because we're not allowed to know what time it is. Like, my brain was like, nope, we're not going, like, this is too much, like, there's no way. And it was funny, because literally, like, last summer, somebody was talking about it, and I was like, yeah, no way, like, I would never go on that, like, that sounds awful, terrifying, like, no. Well, so they gave me the application in print, and so I scanned it into my computer using my scanner, turned it into a Word document and typed it out that way, emailed my answers to the committee, because, you know, I was like, well, I might as well just apply and see what happens. Like, they're not going to accept me because, I don't know, I just kept coming up with reasons why they wouldn't, even though I was like, there's a good chance they might, but who knows. So the staff people were really chill, but they were really concerned for me as a blind person, because they didn't know, you know, what to do, and I didn't know what to do because I'd never been on one, so I was like, oh boy. So I wrote them an email, and I said, look, if I get accepted, here's what I would need. And so, like, literally, it was like this like super long list of things. Like, it was, I need to know what time it is to feed my dog, because, you know, she has to eat on time. I need to bring my guide dog, because, like, she's my guide dog. Which they could have said no, because it's a private area, but it was open to public, so yeah, it's kind of a whole thing. But they said you could bring your guide dog, and I was like, thank you. I was gonna do it anyway, so yeah. And, you know, I said, you know, just, I might need assistance learning the routes to the different areas, and, you know, I would need a little bit extra space for my dog, because it's not just me, it's me and a dog. And I said I would need, my big thing was permission to bring an electronic braille device, which is my Braille Note Touch, and that was it, yeah. And so I knew people would be giving speeches or talks, whatever they call them, and so I wanted to get those recorded in Braille for myself, taking notes, and also they said they would put things on the flash drive for me if I needed them. Sorry. So I did that. Like I said, I would need this, and I need the documents in this format, and the worship, because they said there was going to be worship, so I needed that in an accessible format for myself. Because I don't like just sitting there when everybody else is like in the worship, and I'm just like, I'm bored. Like I'm not feeling this connection because I can't understand the words, and I don't know what's happening. It just, me personally, I connect more with written words. I don't really do talking, which is ironic because I'm making this video, but I don't do well with like understanding things verbally. That's just my brain, so I need them written down. So I was like, I need the worship. So this goes on for like a couple months, and I get accepted, and I was like super freaked out because I didn't really know anybody. And my sponsor was like, it's okay, like it's fine because you get people that sponsor you, and it was really cool. But I was like, no, it's not fine, like, oh my gosh. And like they were so calm and just like they were like, just relax, like it's okay, God's got it. And I was like, no, he doesn't, like this is gonna fail. And like my brain was like so amped up on like failure, and I was really, really frightened, just because it's by myself in an area I don't know, and there's all these people around, and yeah. And so a couple months pass, Christmas comes, and Christmas Eve is when they sent me the list of songs for worship, and I was like, oh man, it's Christmas Eve, like this is a week away, because I went over New Year's. And so I was like writing down the words to the songs, and I was like, can we shorten the list? And they said, well, no, it's sort of a list of songs that we're going to possibly have, but probably maybe not, because we just kind of go with whatever the Spirit leads, which I understand to a certain point, but I'm like, oh man, like that's a lot of songs. Which it worked out, I had plenty of time to write them down, but in my head I was panicking. And turns out I had most of the songs, but some of them I didn't, so I wrote them down, and when I got home I wrote down all the lyrics. Sorry, I gotta like chill. Okay, so in the meantime of me like getting ready for this and freaking out about this whole thing, my sponsor had contacted my family to ask for assistance with like helping me, how best to assist me, and they were like, we're not going to answer, because a lot of times I do get their point. A lot of times growing up as a blind person, people always assume that the sighted person that's around you, even if they're like 20 feet away, is still in charge of you. So they'll be like, hey, Eric, like you brought in this girl, and what does she need? And it's like, I don't know who Eric is, but he just happened to walk in with me, like I don't know him. And I get my sponsor, she had a good heart. She was trying to do the right thing, but she just didn't go about it the appropriate way. Like she didn't really know what to do. And the nature of the Sojourn is really private. So they can't tell you a lot. And I think my sponsor was a little bit upset about what I knew about it, but I was like, look, like it has to be this way for accommodations. So I don't want to give anything away, but like one of the big things was getting accessible documents through email was my big thing. So I brought my phone, and I just turned it off until like we were allowed to use them, which is whenever we were allowed to use read emails / other things. And so we weren't allowed to read. Nobody else was allowed to read emails, but my documents were sent to me through email, so I could use it that way. My sponsor was chill. She was cool, but she just didn't fully grasp the whole concept of talk to me as a person first, don't talk to my family. So my family decided they weren't going to respond to any of her texts or messages at all, like none. And the ones they did respond were just like, talk to Gretchen. And she was like, well, I can't. And they were like, no response. So my poor sponsor was probably like super stressed, but it's okay because it worked out. But I see both sides, and as a blind person, I get frustrated with people that ask my family things instead of talking to me directly. Even though I do understand this is a private thing, so they wanted to keep it between themselves, but there comes a point when it becomes difficult too. So I do understand my sponsor's point, but I also get my family's side of not responding. I just wish they would have said something. Like, don't just leave it hanging, because that's awkward. Anyway, so the weekend, let me start. Christmas comes, and I'm like, it was a lot better this year. I didn't cry. Well, I did, but not around the family. But I made it through Christmas, and my body was like super stressed, like panic mode. This year has been really hard, and mentally, like December was my breaking point as far as mentally, with everything going on about not having a job and just other things that had happened. Um, so yeah, it was a really stressful month, and my uh, nightly demons were really getting me. And my therapist and I were talking about how to deal with, suicidal thoughts and everything, and I just was not in a good place. So it came, and the weekend came. It was like a Friday, and so my, uh, well, my church has like 4 different pastors. So one of my pastors picked us up in his car, and we went to the place, and I go into the building to sign in, and there's like a form I have to sign, and so I was like, walk in, and my sister came with me. I don't know why, but she did, and I was like, whatever, I don't care. So we get there, and they're like, here, fill this out, and I'm like, here, you can help me fill this out, because my sister's not gonna do it for you. Um, and at this point, I was like super stressed, like I was like shaking, my hands were sweaty, like my whole body was just like on super high hypervigilance, and I could not calm down. Like I was really, really close to having a panic attack. Like I was like really struggling breathing wise, and just like people were it was like walking through the crowd, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to be here. Like I literally was about to cry. I was like, okay, like you gotta breathe, like chill. And my therapist was in my head telling me to breathe. But it was a struggle, and so I signed the form, got everything all squared away as far as medical, because I've been on a lot of different ones, and they were like, what medications are you on? And I'm like, well, there's a list. So um, yeah, so I did that, and then they said, okay, go to the chapel, which is like this huge area with like open, well, it was a building, but it was like open space, and I'm sitting there, and they go, okay, we're gonna pair you up with people. So I get this girl, and they pair me up with this girl. She's really cool, and she was a teacher, and like we talked and everything. But I was like, honestly, like I remember we had a conversation, but in that moment, I was so like detached from my body. Like I was like, I knew it was happening, but I was like, everything's just kind of floating. Like it's just, I'm not gonna react to it. So I don't remember our conversation that much, but we had a conversation. So then I went, and I started mingling with people, which I was very uncomfortable with, but I was like, it's fine. Everybody else is nervous too. And I got my room with my, I think there was like five or six roommates. I don't know how many there were, because I was like really focused on myself, so I don't know. I want to say 5 or 6, maybe less. But anyway, it was like a bunk bed dorm area place, and so Beacon was tied to my bed, and it was fine. Um, so my roommates were really cool. Like they were chill. Like we didn't really hang out in our room that much, but it was cool. So I'm trying to go back. This is like 2 weeks ago, but it seems like 30 years ago. So okay, so we go to this area, and like I didn't have the flash drive because they were still working on it, so they told me just to take my own notes. So I did that. I made sure I was sitting near an outlet to charge my Braille note, because it has like the crappiest charge in the world. It's the Braille Note Touch. It's like the first model they ever made, so like the battery's awful. So yeah, so I was like sitting near an outlet like the whole time, and I was plugging stuff in, and this girl gets up from our table and gives a talk. And at the time, I didn't know she was from our table. I just thought it was some random girl. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, this girl's talking, and I'm like, yeah, like I have nothing in common with this girl. Like we're not. I'm not gonna connect here. And then she said something, and I was like, oh crap! Like it just really got me. And I was like biting my lip because I was about to cry, and it was like, nope, we're not crying here. It's not a safe place to cry. Like we're just gonna take it all in. And so like I was like really struggling just to like calm down because I don't know if I was like triggered by something that she had said, or if it was just a realization that I wasn't alone in my struggle of what she was discussing. And uh, I just remember I was like, okay, like I gotta breathe, because I was like really like I was like not breathing. And so uh, I was like, okay, like get under control, like before anyone notices, you gotta like calm down. And I had a bottle of water, and I was like reaching out on the table to grab it. I don't know why I'm doing this. Yeah, I'm reaching out towards it. Uh, so non-visually, people, I'm reaching out my hand towards the camera. Okay, anyway, so I was reaching out to get the bottle of water, and my hands were shaking, and I couldn't get it open because they were shaking so bad. And I was like, yeah, so I think I might have been a little bit triggered by what she said, so that's fun. And so she comes and sits back down, like pretty much really close to me, and I didn't know she was the same girl. So I was like, that girl did such a good job. And they were like, yeah, she did. And they were like, and then the girl comes and says, hi, I'm one of your group leader people, and she's really cool. But I was like, I didn't realize it was that girl for like a good couple of hours. And so we didn't know what time it was, so I'm guesstimating couple of hours. I don't know. Um, so more people give their talks. I'm like writing on my Braille note touch, writing my notes, and we have to make reflections of the talk. So like our table has to get together and come up with ideas. And one of them, fast forward a little bit, we go to the chapel for another talk. And so like how they had it, ours was co-ed, so boys were in one area, girls were in another, and the chapel was where we all combined sometimes. And sometimes the boys would come to our area. It just kind of depended on the talk. But the first one was just for us girls, and the second one was, I believe it was in the chapel. I don't know. It's been 2 weeks ago. Everything just kind of blended. So after a while, it just kind of mashed together. But one of them was on radical love in the chapel, and like that's the part where I started to like really feel something. So they talked about, how God's radical love and how he's going to, let me rewind. So the first girl's talk was all about choices and everything, and she talked about some stuff that she had been through, and that kind of sparked something, because I was like, oh my gosh, like this girl has been through similar things that I've been through, and like she's fine, like she's made it through, and like she's not scared to death of everything all the time, and she's not like she survived, and she's fine. Like probably, I don't know how fine she was, because like, it's different when you're around a crowd of people, but like she was chill and she was okay, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that could be me someday, like I could make it through this. And that's what really started the whole emotional roller coaster. And so then the next talk was about radical love, and it was about God's love, and how he's not going to leave us, and even if we turn away, he's still going to come after us. He's not just going to be like, you did this, so bye, like, And so that one really got me, and I had to write a poem because our table did a lot of posters and drawings, and so I couldn't obviously draw. So I wrote a poem, and I had to read it in front of the group, and I was like, yay. But it was okay. But that was like the start of it. And so then later on that evening, we had like lunch, and it was tacos. I love tacos. And my table people were really cool. Like if I needed help, they would help me. The staff people were awesome too. Like if you needed help, you could literally just say, hey person, I need assistance. And they would be like, okay, what do you need? Like I didn't do that, but I could have. Like they were gonna take Beacon outside for me to let her poop. And they even had gloves to help pick it up. Like they were gonna pick up her poop for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's awesome. Like I don't even know. No one's ever offered to pick up her poop. Like, and they were gonna like take her outside, like if I needed to not be interrupted. And they were gonna like feed her for me, and like they were willing to do anything I needed, and I was just like so shocked, and like I was just like, whoa, like these people don't even know me, and they're gonna pick up my dog's poop, like um, and I don't want to give too much away, but there's a lot of gifts and stuff involved, and a lot of different things, and um, just the impact of people caring. Like people would come up to me and say, "I'm so glad you're here," and I was like, "Who are you?" But like they cared, and you could tell that, and it wasn't I wasn't bothering them by asking for help, and like that was so shocking because like I felt like I was gonna be like so annoying because they'd be like, "Oh crap, this blind person needs help with going across the room to get food or something," and like no, it was not like that at all. Like they were very open, very willing to help me, and I was just so surprised. Like I was like, I don't know what to do. Like people are so chill, and um, I mean, like, okay, the first day I was like almost crying because they had ice cream, and like this lady, she was so cool. Like literally, I called her the ice cream lady like the whole time. But it was like dinner, and we had what did we have? Pork chops, I think. Yeah, pork chops. Oh my gosh, those were great. Oh, those were awesome. So we had pork chops. I love pork chops. I love meat, and so we had dinner, and this lady, because I'm lactose intolerant, so I had to request no lactose in my food because I wasn't going to deal with that in a new place because that would be awful. Um, so they brought me ice cream, and they said, "Which kind do you want? We have peanut butter, we have chocolate." Like they gave this whole list, and that's expensive ice cream, man. Like it's like super expensive. Like we don't get it because it's a lot of money. I just suffer with my own ice cream. I don't eat it that much because it's not worth the pain, but sometimes it is. So I'm like, "Oh well, is it all lactose free?" And they go, "Yeah." And they probably got tired of me asking that because like every time they put something on my plate, I was like, "Is this lactose free? Is there milk in this? Can I eat this?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Whoa." So like, so I tell them what flavor I want, and they say okay, and they hand me the pint, and I'm like, um, I need to like share this with people, and they go, "Oh no, it's fine. The whole pint's yours." And I was like, "That's a whole pint of ice cream." Like, I never had a whole pint of ice cream that I could eat, and I could eat as much as I wanted to without someone saying, or my brain saying, "You shouldn't eat that. Your stomach's gonna hurt." And like, I didn't eat a whole lot, but like the idea that I could have, like, it was wow. And they had like bacon. I love bacon and pancakes and eggs and um, turkey strips, like marinated turkey, and like the food was amazing. Like I was like so shocked. Like I was like, food, yay. um, so another thing too that I want to point out as well, I'll get to that. Okay, so time goes on. We have another talk, probably like 5 or 6 talks. I don't know. We had like a lot. They had like 14 throughout the whole thing. And then we um, I gotta think. Okay, yeah. So in our area they had this cross. It was like a giant wooden cross. Okay, obviously you know what a cross is, but it was wooden, and they had these nails, and you could go up to the cross and nail your insert whatever you feel onto the cross. Okay, so I didn't feel comfortable writing mine down because obviously I had to write in print and I couldn't do that. I didn't feel comfortable telling someone. Sorry, my furnace air thing is on. So I didn't write mine down, but I had it in my head about what I would say, and it was really personal. But I've been dealing with a lot of anger with God this past year. Like, God and I have not been on the best of terms. Uh, I get really angry, and I'm just like, seriously, God, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you having all these things in my life? Like, what am I supposed to do? Um, it, it's a slow relationship. Like, we're getting there, but it's a struggle. And yeah, so God and I have been super uh, angry. And, well, I mean, I've been angry with God. I don't know if God's angry with me. Probably not. Hopefully not. But I've been angry with God, because He, one of the things that I am comfortable talking about on YouTube is, my best friend. She died, and like I was like really angry because I wasn't ready to let go, and like no. um, and and so like I had this in my head. I had this idea that God was mad at me because I was angry with Him, slash sort of still am, I guess, in a way. Not really, not as much as I was, but it's still there a little bit. Um, so they had these nails and this hammer, and we could like hammer our pain into the cross, and so I did, and I was like holding the nail, but I dropped it because it was like so small. Sorry. So for blind people, I'm literally having my hand up in the air like I'm holding a nail, but it's like really tiny, so I don't have a nail. It's just sometimes I talk with my hands, and it doesn't make sense to probably anybody besides me. But I'm like, look, I'm holding a nail. See, I have my hand out. Okay, so anyway, so I was holding this nail, and I dropped it, and so they had to help me like find it because it like rolled all over the place. And so I picked it up, and I was holding it, and I hammered it in. I was like, I'm not gonna hammer myself with the hammer. So then the next thing happens is somebody comes up with this thing. I don't know, like a lighter, I guess. I don't know what it was. It was really cool. But they started a fire, and I was like, oh crap, there's a fire. And Beacon was like, fire! So like she got up and she was like trying to run away, and I was like, Beacon, it's fine, it's okay. And like the fire lasted like 10 seconds. Like it was really shocking. I don't know what it was. It was like the paper they used, but it was like really cool. But in my head, I thought they burned the cross. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like they burned the cross. So I was like, is it gone? And they were like, yeah, it's gone. And I was like, oh, okay. Um, that's awful. Like they burned the cross. Like, okay. And so so later on that night, we went to the chapel again. I think this was in the chapel. I don't know. It kind of all mixed together. We went to the chapel, and they said, okay, this is your time to talk to God, and you can do whatever you want. You can walk around, you can stay in your seat. We have spiritual directors, which are basically like preachers. You can talk to them about whatever you want. But first we had to go up to the altar and like do something. I forget what it was. I think it was communion. I don't know. But the communion was different there. Like it was like this loaf of bread, and you had to like dip it in this cup of grape juice, and like it was really weird. I mean, it was cool, but kind of weird. Because I'd never done that before at my church, and so I was like, what do I do? So the person assisted me with doing that, because I was like, I don't want to touch the whole loaf of bread and be like, okay, I need to rip off a piece of bread, like, So they helped me. It was totally fine. But then we had to pray like at the altar, and like I don't know what an altar is. Like my church doesn't have altars, and so I was like, what's an altar? Like I don't know what that is, and so I felt really dumb because I don't know what an altar is. I've never been to a church with that before. So an altar is like a podium. Like okay, so like imagine like a table that's like slanted downward, and the slope is facing towards you if you're standing behind it. So like if you're going to speak to a group of people, you're standing behind the podium, which is facing at a slope downhill, and the downhill portion is towards your body. And so then like on the like middle slash lower portion of that podium slash whatever, there's a cushion thing, and so like it comes out, it's like attached to the podium. There's like a cushion thing, and so like you can kneel on the cushion thingy, and you put your hands on the top of the podium on like the flat part. And the first time, like we had to pray as a group, and I was like, my group was criers, like everyone cried, and I was like, oh, this is so awkward. Like I don't cry, like oh, strong emotion. I don't like strong emotion. I'm getting better, but I'm still not a fan of it. And so like I was like touching it. I was like, oh, there's tears on here. Like this is gross. Like other people's tears. Ew. Uh, yeah, I just it was all a lot. And so like we had to pray, and I was like, okay, I don't like this. Like strong emotions are coming, and I just need to like not feel them. So I went and sat back down, and I decided to write because I'm not really a I don't do well with talking, even though I'm making this video. So I took my brown note and I started writing, and it was really a lot. Like, I was like, okay, God, like, help me let go of this, and help me not to feel this, and also help me not to feel so empty. Because our theme was the wilderness, and it was about showing how God shows His power in the darkest times, and like, oh my gosh, that was so me because I was in my wilderness, and I've been in that for a while, and it gave me hope that there was a way out, that did not involve, uh, well, ending it. Um, and I had reached my end, my rope, end of my rope. That's the words. Like, if it hadn't been for that retreat slash journey, I don't know if I would be making this video, because it was really hard, and I was really struggling, and I didn't really want to see 2023. I was like, if this is all there is, if this is gonna be my life now, just dealing with everything, being afraid of everything, and just being so alone, and dealing with all these emotions, like, I don't want to do that. I'm done. Like, bye. Like, and so this journey, like, changed my life and saved my life in a way, and it had to have been a God thing, because literally, like, literally, I was not planning on seeing 2023, and I did because I was there. So, you know, so all that was going on in the back of my mind about the girl that had gone through a similar situation, and she was okay, and so I was writing all this down, and um, then sorry, and then we were words. Okay, hold on. Then we were required to be silent for a short amount of time, and I'm not gonna say how long, but it was like a night. So I was like very awkward because I was like, I had to go take a shower, and I was like, can you come and tell me if the showers are empty? Because I don't want to be like, is someone in the shower? Because like we couldn't talk. We weren't allowed to talk really. We could talk for like needed things, but that was it. It was supposed to be about like spiritual peace, and it was hard. Like, my soul was like, I don't know if your soul can scream cry, but my soul was scream crying. So yeah, I had a lot of emotion, and I was like, oh, this is so hard. I don't like emotion. Um, so we were required to be silent, and eventually I'll read to you what I wrote during that time, but there was a lot. I wrote like 5 or 6 different poems. And my group leader was like, hey, like, everyone else is asleep. You don't have to sleep. I'm not telling you have to sleep, but everyone else is. So just letting you know, that we're ready for bed. So, they were letting me know what was going on around me because everyone was silent, so I had no idea. And I was like, okay, cool, like, I'll go to sleep eventually, but my soul was still scream crying, so I couldn't sleep yet. Okay, so in that silence, so many things, and I can't get into it all because some of it is personal, and I'm not ready to talk about it on a video. But I had this idea in my head that, well, okay, so first off, if God loved us so much and God cared, why would He let some things happen? And why would He not be there for us? Like, He was supposed to protect us, so where was He? And like, I wanted this aching loneliness to end because, like, I was mad because God had taken my best friend, and I didn't have any other like super best friends. Like I have friends, but we were so close. Like we were like sisters, I feel like, and I didn't have that, and I didn't really know what to do, and like I was struggling because I'm not the best at letting people in, especially now. I don't really trust people a lot, and so I was worried because I was like, seriously, God, like, is this all there is? Um, you took my best friend, and now I don't have any. And what if I never do? What if I never do have another best friend? Uh, and I don't really know what I'm supposed to do because, you know, I don't do well at letting people in emotionally, and so it's only been it's 11 months at this point. It's 11 and 5 days. Uh, but it's like, is this all there is going to be ever? Um, and I'm failing at life. I don't have a job. I don't have. I'm behind. I don't have feelings. Like I was like blocking everything out. Like seriously, like there's literally like a 3 month gap in between February and April last year that I don't really know what was happening. Like I know I was there because I was there, but granted, I did have a concussion in part of that, but the other part was just everything had happened and it was crashing down on me, and I didn't want to feel. And I was dissociating a lot during that time. So, you know, it was a lot. And so I started writing because I don't really do a lot of talking. And so I was like writing and I was asking God, where are you? And, oh, sorry, I've got some tears in my eyes. Uh, yeah, so that's fun. So I was asking God, like, where are you? Because you said you weren't supposed to leave us alone, and like you did, and why? Like, where are you? And this was sort of like a prayer slash poem because I was crying out to God, like, where are you? Like, I have nothing left, and it's like you've taken everything that I thought that I had. Like, my faith in you is barely there. I know you're still there because you're God, but like, why aren't you here? Why aren't you helping me? Um, and so then I am struggling with forgiving someone that hurt me very deeply. Not going to go into details because it's not something I'm ready to talk about. But it's destroyed me. I don't trust people. PTSD came up. That was a whole thing. That was a fun thing to get diagnosed with. Uh, I don't like crowds. I like listed all these things in my real note. I have a list of things that I was saying. Like all these things were happening, and I didn't see a way out. Like it was like literally like how people say when they walk so far they can't see any light because it's just like covered in trees. And that's what I felt like my life was turning into. And outwardly I was trying really, really hard to be okay, but like internally I was like, no, like I'm done. Like I don't want to do this anymore. Um, and and so because I am angry with this person, I still am. It's not gone away, but it's easier. Because this person, what they did to me, like literally destroyed a lot. Like um, yeah, I lost myself. I lost the me that I used to be. I lost the confident me. I I lost the part of me that I thought mattered. You know, I lost that sense of safety and trust in the world and in people. And I don't know if I can ever get it all the way back to where it was. Um, but like I questioned my job, if I could actually do the job, um, because PTSD is very real, and no matter how many times I try to block it out or ignore it, it's still gonna pop up. And I that was another issue too. I was worried about sleeping there because people, when they touch me, I don't like being touched, and so that was a trigger. And sometimes I wake up with panic attacks slash sometimes screaming. That's always fun. Um, and I was so mad. I was so angry because this person chose to do something, and I'll get into that later. But I do feel like part of it was sort of my fault in a way. But that's a whole thing. Once I'm ready to talk about that, I'll go through that. But um, you know, the Bible says we're supposed to forgive people for what they do, and I didn't want to. I don't want to forgive this person because I didn't know who I would be. Because my whole life after that was built on protecting myself. You know, I didn't let people get close to me. I've um, not really, not really been the person I used to be. You know, I don't go out to public places by myself a lot. I don't walk alone a lot. That's like a whole thing. I don't walk alone. Um, I want to. I really, really want my life back, but I just don't feel safe, and I can't. Like literally, like there's a person walking behind me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what are they gonna do? Like, do I need to run? Like, what are they doing? Like, why are they getting closer? Um, and if somebody comes and stops their car and talks to me on the road, I'm like, why are they stopping their car? Like, are they gonna get out? Like, should I run? Okay, I have my phone. I've got a knife. Like, I've got a cane. Can I defend myself? Like, what if there's more than one person in the car? Like, that's what my brain does all the time when I'm in those situations. And my therapist and I are working on ways to stop it, but sometimes it doesn't really work, and that's just part of PTSD. So that's fun. Um, so so I am angry with God, and I'm like, God, like if you loved us, why would you do this? And also, I don't deserve your love because I can't forgive people, and therefore it says that you can't forgive me, because you know it's like you can't forgive, you can't expect God to forgive you if you can't forgive people that have hurt you. And I'm like, God, like I don't want to, um, because I built my life on these past, I can't say how many months because of, okay, a while that this thing happened. Um, and if I let go of that anger and that fear and that hardness, I don't know who I'll be because I lost the part of me that was carefree in the world. I didn't really, I wasn't, um, I didn't feel so broken at the time, I guess. Like, I still had depression and stuff, but it wasn't as bad as it is now. Um, and I was still stressed out about going into crowds, but like at the time, before all this, I could do that. I wouldn't like it, but it was okay. Um, and I could walk alone at night, and I could be alone with people. Um, and that's been the hardest thing, being alone with people. in a private setting, just because I don't know where I am as far as like environmental wise, and I don't have an escape route. And I need that. Like I need to know how to get out. And in our dorm rooms at the place, I got my bed closest to the door. Um, and I didn't tell them that the reason why I chose that is because I could get out faster. Uh, so, but let me fast forward a bit. But anyway, so I wrote all this down, and I wrote this poem slash prayer, and it was really deep. And I was like, I don't want to read this ever. Like, this is just for me. But I cried so much when I was writing it, and everyone else was asleep. So I was like, okay, it's okay to cry. Because that's another thing too. I don't feel safe expressing my emotions because I don't know how other people are going to react. So then I fell asleep. And oh my gosh, you guys. I was at so much peace. Like, I was like, God, like, can I have this every night? I was so at peace. Like, I didn't even wake up screaming or panicking or sweating or shaking or anything. Like, I was okay. And I just felt involved in God's presence. And they told us that people were praying for us 24 hours a day in the chapel and other places. They were on their knees and asking for God to help us with our whatever. And I felt that a lot because I slept for the first time in a long time. I slept without fear and without my demon friends, as I like to call them, because they just kind of show up and they're like, your life sucks, you're going to fail at life, you should not be alive. Like, that's what they tell me. And then at night, especially because it's quieter, and they weren't there. And I was like, I woke up and I was like, thanks God, like, that was amazing. And I felt so at peace. And I was like, can I please have this? Like, I really, really want this. And the idea that I could have that again, that's what that helped me realize, that it's not the end. There's still a way to get peace. It's going to be hard, but it's still possible. And I could actually feel it. And I was like, okay, like, it's going to be okay. Like, it's going to suck, but it's going to be okay. So we have more talks, and life goes on, and we have food, and a lot of skits. Like, it was funny. We had a lot of skits. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but it was hilarious. Like, this one lady, oh my gosh. Okay, so this one lady, she was like, they were demonstrating the different emotions, and she walked in and she was demonstrating joy, and so she was so happy. It was hilarious because as she's going on, she goes, oh, I got so excited, I peed a little bit. And we're all like cracking up because, you know, she's in this skit thing and she's in front of like all of us, and she just told us she just peed. Like, we're just like, what? We were so shocked. It was hilarious. I love that lady. She's so awesome. Um, and they had other skits too. Like, they had this one that was, they had this, these two teams. They had the cooks, which were all men, and the Marthas, which were these ladies. And they had these wigs on, and they were like curly hair, and this lady let me feel her hair. It was really cool. And they had to do all these different things, like rolling and somersaults and cartwheels and stuff. And so they're like struggling to do it, and the cooks come out, and they're like, we can do cartwheels, and they come out and they bring carts on wheels, and cinnamon rolls for the rolls, and then they had a toaster. This is my favorite part of the whole thing. They brought a toaster, and they had I don't know if it was like a spoon or what, but they were like beating on it, and it was like this song, and it was like, you take a piece of bread and you put it in the slot. Sorry, Beacon's like, what? And I can't do it right because I don't have a spoon. But there's a song, and it's like, French toast! Yeah, toast! And it would just keep going on and on. It was hilarious. Because they had a toaster too. But it's literally a song about toast, and it was funny because they were doing it at breakfast, and it was just so random, like no one expected it. They just walked out with a toaster, and we're just like, what's going on? um, yeah, so it was so funny, but okay, so I need to rewind. That was later in the weekend. It was like Sunday. So Friday night was like, no, we had to be silent. So then Saturday morning we went to the chapel and they broke the silence, and oh, this one got me too. Really, really got me. So we had communion, right? And so they had these. Well, they had a cross, and they had a crown of thorns and a hammer and nails, and they had these nails, and they were like super long, and I was like, can I see those? Because I never felt the crown of thorns. I didn't know what it was. And so they let me feel this, and like it's really something you have to go feel. Like if you're blind, go feel them because you won't get it. I mean, okay, let me rephrase that. If you're sighted and you become blind later, you might get it. Beacon left. She's like, bye. She was on my bed and she went to my sister's room. So I'm gonna make sure I'm still recording. Stop recording. 51 minutes, 41 seconds. Okay. Speak on. Alright, I had to make sure I was still recording. We're good. So if you're like born blind, you need to go feel this because it's amazing. I tried so much. So the thorns were interlaced in the crown. Like imagine like a headband but with thorns, okay? And so then so that they're facing downward, so like what you would imagine a picket fence, no, not a picket fence, a barbed wire fence being like, except it's on your head, basically. Okay, and so then like inside the headband, because they're facing downward, they're pressing into your scalp like spikes, basically. They're also pressing inward, so like they're around the inside of the thing, like a prong collar would be for a dog. I'm gonna make sure my battery power's okay before I continue. Speak on. Camera control status. Viewfinder. Focus up. Viewfinder. Image. Viewfinder. Viewfinder. Camera controls. Viewfinder. Stop recording. 52 minutes. 54 seconds. Take picture. 52 minutes. Take picture. 52 minutes. 56 seconds. Viewfinder. Focus unlocked. Viewfinder. Viewfinder. Focus up. Viewfinder. Focus. Viewfinder. Focus unlocked. Image. Double tap to focus. Speak off. Okay. Just gonna go from what it is. Okay. So, I can't find the battery power, so. They're facing inward, and then the nails, oh my gosh, like I was like crying. They were so long. They were okay, so like if you have a folding cane, imagine that, but like one of the lengths of that, like one of the sections, but like one of that and half of another one, or maybe even two sections. These were just replicas, but oh my gosh, like that just really got me. Like a lot, like it just really, really got me, and I was like, oh, I hate emotions. Because it really got to me, because Jesus could have been like, nah, I'm good, I don't want to deal with you all, so I'm done, I don't want to be on this cross, bye. And he didn't, and someone had explained to me how he was on the cross, because like, okay, so full disclosure, I thought there was a rope tying him to the cross. Because I just couldn't see how those tiny little nails that you have at the store, you can buy at Walmart for like, $1 in the big little box thing, I couldn't see how those could hold the person on the cross, because in retrospect, I've never seen nails like that, so I was like, they're really tiny. So I was like, okay, how do these tiny little nails hold a human being to a cross? Like, that's not possible. Ever. And, excuse me. So they were explaining to me that the nails go through the feet. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but they go through like the ankles and then like the metatarsal bones, somewhere around there. They go in there, And then they go on the wrist, like at the wrist bones, like right where your radius and ulna meet, you know, right where they meet the um, carpal bones, you know. And I can't really demonstrate because I don't want to show you. Not that I'm going to do it, but you know, I can't really like show you physically without showing you in person. Um, but the reason why they had to go on the wrist was because they were so long, they had to go all the way through. That's why the nails were so long. Um, if they went in the hand, it would rip out the bones because the bones weren't strong enough to support the full body weight. There's no rope. I thought there was, but there's no rope. Uh, and I looked this up later just to get a clearer picture. So you're stretched out on this cross, right? And the way you have to breathe, so all that air, you can breathe in, but you can't exhale because exhale requires you to bring the diaphragm down, and you can't do that because your feet are stuck. And so you have to move, like your whole body has to physically move to push that air out of your lungs. And you can't do that because you're stuck. So like you're literally tearing your body apart trying to move. And what really got me was, so we had communion and everything. I'm going to fast forward a little bit, but this kind of got me too. I was crying. Everybody was crying. And they didn't tell me this, but they were crying because they were watching me cry. And I was like, oh. Because they were watching that hit me, what Jesus actually did. And it got me because, you know, it made it more real, you know? Because, like, there's only so much you can get from people telling you stuff until you actually experience it. Then you're like, whoa, crap. Like, I would be like, no way, I'm done. I'm not doing this. So then later that night we had another, well, okay. So rewind a little bit. So that day I was out with people when I was talking to them and stuff. And I had to read my poem. Because God was like, you're reading that poem that you wrote last night in the silence. And I was like, nah, I'm good. And God was like, too bad. And then they go, surprise, we're having a talent night. So you can do whatever you want. And I was like, darn it, God, like, what? I don't want to do that. And he's like, too bad for you. And he kept getting it on my mind. And I was like, you know, maybe I need to read this. And so that afternoon we had all sat in our room and I was telling somebody, I didn't know that the girl was in the room when I said this. Because I was still learning everybody's voices. But I was like, yeah, I called someone out in the poem. And she's like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah. I said, that's a good call out. It's not bad. So I go into the microphone to read this poem to the group. And I changed a couple things because we were reading it in front of the gentleman, and I was like, nope, too personal, taking some of that out. And the girl that had helped me get to the microphone was the girl that I was talking about in my poem, because she was the one that gave the first talk and gave me that hope. And it just started blossoming from there, and so she was crying, and I was about to cry, and I was like, okay, I'm done, bye. Because it was really deep and personal. I don't like being personal at all. So she goes, and she's like crying, and she's like, I'm crying, and I'm like, sorry, me too, I'm about to cry. So then later that night, we had the chapel again, and they were burning the paper on the cross. Because I asked, I was like, are they going to burn the cross? And they were like, no. That's like something the Clayton would do. We don't burn the cross. That's the KKK is not here. So, for those of you that aren't familiar with that, go look up the KKK. It'll make more sense. They didn't burn the cross there. It's not like that. The KKK did though. That's what they would do. They would burn it on like people's lawns and stuff, and they would like set fires and. Well, not that they would. They're still around. They didn't like die, but they're not as prevalent as they once were. So, but they didn't burn the cross. But that's what I thought, because I was like, there's a fire, they're burning the cross. And I was like, they have another one? Like, where did that come from? Because they were saying you could do that again. And they were like, no, like, it's the same cross. And I was like, oh, okay, that's good. That's good, they didn't burn the cross. So then they said we could talk to spiritual directors again. And I was like, nah, I'm good. And this girl asked me like 5 times. She's like, are you sure you don't want to talk to anybody? I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm good. And like every time I got further and further, and I was like, I'm okay. Like, thank you. But in my head, I'm like, I really need to talk to someone. So In the meantime, I start reading the crucifixion story because I'm like, I want to get this in my head. And what really got me was, so I'm going to make sure I'm still recording. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to make a part 2 just because I want to make sure the battery's okay.